Buenos dias, amigos. Your rubbing my nipples, push it in.
Brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S.
Iran have a big Iranian skiing team.
There's no Kinkos, there's no Office Max.
You're black, I got a black printer for you. All right, guys, how you doing? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is February 10th, 2026. We are live streaming on Rumble, on Locals, on YouTube. You've already shared, subscribed, and tapped that notification bell. I thank you for that. And today's show is an interesting one because, as was just noted by my crack team before we started here, there actually wasn't a tremendous amount of news yesterday. So today's more of just like a general what's been going on kind of thing, and we'll fill it in with some strange things involving racism and people from Hollywood and the other stuff. But in terms of like hardcore news yesterday, I guess everybody was a little hungover from the Super Bowl or something. Nothing major actually happened yesterday. So let's just dive right in. It's just going to be an easy show today. So just everyone take a breath. Let's ease into it. You know what I mean? Let's start with Hollywood. Quote unquote comedian Jimmy Kimmel, I thought, had an interesting take here because, you know, one of the fallouts from the Super Bowl, almost nobody really cared about, wasn't a particularly good game. It was sort of boring. You kind of knew that the Seahawks were going to win by, I don't know, mid-second quarter, something like that. And the game just kind of dragged along. But obviously all of the stuff afterwards was about the halftime show and Bad Bunny and singing in Spanish and all that. And as I said yesterday, look, I'm not in an uproar over the language issue. I'm not in an uproar even over some of the dirty dancing or any of that stuff. Like, I don't have a stick up my butt. It's not that. It's more just like to the backdrop of America's 250th anniversary, connecting it to all of the woke stuff that they've pushed on us. Like, they could have done something that really celebrated America, that would have brought more people in. They could have done that, and they chose something else, right? Now, interestingly, as they chose that, then all of the wokesters and the libs, and I hate using the word libs or liberals like that, they always have to fall in line when they're told what to do. So suddenly, all of these people, like these middle-aged mothers, you know, 47-year-old moms of 3 in the suburbs, are telling you how much they love Bad Bunny, who they couldn't have pointed to, you know, 3 days before. And even Jimmy Kimmel, wokester, $20 million a year, everyone's racist Jimmy Kimmel, even he made a joke about how they're all just pretending to like Bad Bunny because it opposes Trump.
This week, almost every liberal I know suddenly really into Bad Bunny. I mean, people I've never heard say the words bad or bunny in their lives. Like, I can't wait for Bad Bunny. Oh, what's your favorite Bad Bunny song? I don't know, but I love him. I love Bad Bunny. Here's the thing on me. Did I know any of the songs Bad Bunny was singing? Absolutely not. Never heard even 1 second of one of them. Did I understand any of what he was singing? Yes, the word nunca. That was it.
All right, comedy. 20 writers, 20 people sit in a room and come up with that. But what I think is interesting about that is he's acknowledging some level of truth there. But it's not exactly what he thinks he's laying out. What he's really saying is, oh, you liberals, you all fall in line. You are all group thinkers. When we tell you what to like, you will like it. As opposed to, I truly mean this, I watched that thing with an open mind. We were making plenty of jokes last week. I don't know who Bad Bunny is. It's just not my thing, right? But I wanted to watch that halftime show and be surprised or be pleasantly amused by what had happened or be wowed by it. Of course I did. And again, 250th anniversary of America, America's pastime, football. They could have done something great. One thing that I saw on Twitter that someone said that would have been so cool was it was Super Bowl 62. 60, comma, TOO, 62, right? So what they could have done is taken 6 decades of music and had a different singer. You're not going to find singers from 6 decades ago that are still out there, really. But you could take, just do 10 or 6 different 10-year periods of music and do something. But to all of that, the fact that it wasn't in the native language of America, that there was some lyrics in there, which again we'll get to in a moment, that weren't so clean and everything else. Like, you guys just could have done better. But okay, this is what they do. They fall in line, and now they all love the Bad Bunny. Over on The View, Sunny Hostin, who's the most racist woman on television, who is at least partly Puerto Rican, although we're going to dive into that a bit more in just a moment. Here she explains how wonderful it was, and Whoopi also telling us that if we watched it, we would have understood it.
Of course, you know, I've been going to Puerto Rico since I was a little kid, since my mother is from there. And it was such an homage to the island, La Isla del Encanto. Yeah. It was so beautiful to see the sugar cane in Puerto Rico, to see the pava hat. And, you know, people kept on asking me, like, what is this? What were you wearing on Friday?
He said no one would understand what was being said. You didn't understand.
Yeah.
A lot of people did.
You didn't have to understand or speak Spanish to feel the joy.
All right. First off, okay, fine. It was an homage, but it was an homage to Puerto Rico, which I understand is technically part of America. But if they had done just like an homage to America, right? You guys would have told us it was racist propaganda, that the Trump administration was coordinating with the NFL, and we just did some sort of country thing as an homage to America. Now, as far as Whoopi telling us that she understood it, it's just that we didn't understand it. Can I just read a couple of those lyrics again? So they did, now remember, he did it all in Spanish, and they did edit some of the lyrics, but the song that he sang was Safera by the Bad Bunny, and I'll just quickly read again some of the lyrics here. Real G guiding the new generations with the OG1 galactic style lust. Yes, so that your panties get wet, get horny and versatile, more slutty than Betty Boop. The one who got horny, mommy, it was you. No, it was you. I stay killing with the U, pussy with dick, dick with ass, push it in, pussy with dick, dick with ass, push it in, pussy with dick, dick with ass, push it in. Your tits rubbing my nipples, push it in. This year I don't want sluts, push it in. They see you with a lot of jewels and they want to stay, push it in. Do we have a human resources department here? Because I feel like I'm in some kind of trouble right now. All right, so Whoopi, you understood that. That's what you wanted to convey to us, and it was in Spanish. Okay, fine. But it is interesting that Sunny brought up that she spent a lot of time in Puerto Rico as a child. I wonder why she did.
Some surprising revelations about my family history. What I found out was that my mother's family, while they are Puerto Rican, they actually originate from Spain. And the reason that they moved to Puerto Rico is because the slave trade had been sort of canceled in Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I had been told that they were printers and journalists, but they were in fact enslavers.
That is as good as it gets. Did you catch that? She spent her childhood in the previous clip in Puerto Rico, but the reason she spent some of her childhood in Puerto Rico is because her ancestors on her mom's side, they weren't printers and actors and just, you know, whatever. They were Spanish slavers who were so upset that Spain was ending slavery that they took the slaves and kept selling them in Puerto Rico. Pretty good. Over on MS Now, Joe Scarborough, he here tries to explain that if you don't like Bad Bunny, you must be a socialist. If you have like a plastic bag, you might want to put it over your head for this one. Go.
You're getting the biggest artist in the world. And if you're the NFL and you like capitalism, why not? So I don't know why these socialists hate capitalism so much, and they hate a company doing what's best for their bottom line, but they obviously do. I feel sorry for them. Maybe they should read some Noam Chomsky, because this is American capitalism at its best.
Yeah, it was purely American, the capitalism and the message. And
it was purely American, capitalism and the message. Bad Bunny, who just days before was on stage at the Grammys, going after ICE and going after Trump and everything else. It was just pure, like, and then the way he's trying to flip capitalism, like, you guys aren't clever. You're all deeply, deeply unlikable and dishonest. And, you know, it's interesting. So your point is, oh, the NFL did what's best for its bottom line. Well, I suppose we will find out. because, you know, an awful lot of people tuned out of the halftime show. And you know what they tuned into? Can we get the numbers? I know it's a little hard to fully track the numbers of what the Turning Point halftime show did, but it was millions and millions of concurrent live stream viewers. So if it was all about capitalism and doing what was best to keep eyeballs on the screen, then the NFL abjectly failed, because this year, for the first time ever, millions and millions of people tuned out, changed the channel, clicked over to another tab and watched the Turning Point show. Here's Andrew Colvett, who was Charlie Kirk's producer for the Charlie Kirk show, has been working with him at Turning Point forever, talking about why they decided to do this alternate halftime show.
This is about being together. Bad Bunny is a terrific performer. He's #1 in every chart all over the country, all over the world. You'll never have a dominant performance like this again.
With all due respect, you know, I don't feel like we were trying to pick a fight at all. We weren't trying to sow division. There was a lot of people wanted a different alternative. We responded. There's no agenda. There was no hate. We weren't, you know, coming after him. This was just one of those things where a lot of elements came together. And, you know, listen, I speak Spanish. I have Hispanic in my background. You know, no, there's no issue, right? But a lot of people, whether you like to admit it or not, they don't want to listen to music on the biggest stage in the country that's only in Spanish. So I heard that more than anything. They didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just true. That has nothing to do with hate or anything else. I don't hate Spanish speakers. Again, I'm here in Miami and I hear Spanish and from Cubans and Venezuelans and all the time, and that's just fine. And the culture is kind of fun, and I enjoy a mojito and all of that stuff. But the question is, on our biggest day, in the few moments that we have left in this country, Thanksgiving, Super Bowl, Christmas basically are the only ones. And Christmas, they really, you know, they show you basketball games that not that many people tune into. So you really got Thanksgiving, football, and Super Bowl are the days that we can all tune into something together and watch them together. And the truth is, only 13% of Americans speak Spanish, on top of the obvious political overtones that Bad Bunny was pushing, and to the backdrop of all the ICE stuff and everything else. So Colvett is not coming out there with anything close to hate or anything else. And by the way, Joe Scarborough, if you want to talk about capitalism, well, capitalism is competition, right? So all they did was they created something to see if other people want to tune in, and it turns out that did. There were about 6 million concurrent live viewers on the Turning Point halftime stream. So that's millions and millions of people. If it's 6 million concurrent live viewers, I mean, all those houses have multiple people in those houses. So you got to think around, I don't know, 18, 20, could be way more than that. Millions of people were watching it then, and 21 total million views now. So subsequently after the live streams on that Turning Point thing. So you're right, Joe Scarborough, capitalism is good. And when corporations, like if we've learned nothing over the last decade, when corporations try to force feed us politics, or when you guys try to tell us how we should feel about everything, those of us who are not the brain-broken wokesters that you're talking about there, Jimmy Kimmel, right? In a weird way, you're making the same point. Jimmy Kimmel, you're like, oh, they told us to like something and we like it. Well, the others here, we like competition, we like choice and everything else. So if the NFL wants to keep doing that, if the NBA wants to keep telling us how racist we are, well, then people will build not only new halftime shows, eventually they'll build new leagues and everything else. Let us put that right there. Let's talk about Rumble Wallet for a second, and then we will shift over to the governor of Kentucky, who had some rather, did you know the governor of Kentucky is a Democrat? How bizarre. But he had some rather weird things to say also to the ladies of you. Guys, you may have seen conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back and it's everywhere. Big tech platforms control narratives and push only what they want us to see, and we need to fight back. Rumble is the one company that has consistently stood up to big tech censorship, and now they're taking it even further. Banks can cancel accounts and freeze cards anytime. That's why Rumble launched Rumble Wallet, a wallet that cannot be canceled. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not the government, not a tech company, not even Rumble. You can buy and store digital assets like Bitcoin and Tether Gold, which represent real physical gold on the blockchain. You can also instantly tip creators like myself with no middlemen and no fees. Download Rumble Wallet today at wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet in the app stores and step away from the big banks for good. All right, so I want to dedicate this segment to my good friend, and I think the most all-time returning guest on the Rubin Report, and actually the first ever guest on the Rubin Report way back when, a long time ago, my friend Gad Saad, because Gad has a new book coming out called Suicidal Empathy, and I've mentioned this phrase many times. Elon's been retweeting stories about what suicidal empathy is and retweeting Gad all the time. The idea that we should all be empathetic. You should all have, this is the cover of the new book, which comes out in May, by the way, and we'll have Gad on. And it's a, look at that. I mean, it's a spectacular cover. Free the wolves, dying to be kind. And it's a sheep, obviously. Gad is one of the great thinkers that we have. And you know, we should all be empathetic. We should all be sympathetic. You want to feel for another person and everything else. But suicidal empathy, when you put empathy at the top of that hierarchy, right? You can think about it in a Jordan Peterson-esque way. Like you have the pyramid, the hierarchy of importance. And empathy should be there, but it can't be the highest possible thing because you will ultimately allow every bad idea and you will allow every bad person in, and you will be able to defend nothing in the name of being good and being empathetic and all those things. That's what makes it suicidal. So this whole segment really is dedicated to that. And I want to start with a clip of Kentucky governor. It's so bizarre to me that they have, I've never been to Kentucky, I don't think. I need to go, I'm going to Kentucky. That's it. We're taking a trip. So book something in Kentucky, would you? They have a Democrat governor. His name is Andy Beshear. He went on The View, and here he is talking about his faith, which obviously I think is just fine, but he then connects his faith into why he vetoed a ban on trans care for minors. Did you hear what I said there? He vetoed, they wanted to ban underage kids from having their genitals mutilated. He vetoed that, and he did that because of his faith. Take a look.
But we rarely talk about the why. People want to know what drives us, especially in a world with social media where everyone's looking for the next authentic thing. For me, that's my faith. Most of the decisions I make are based on that golden rule that says we love our neighbor as ourselves, and that parable of the Good Samaritan that says everyone is our neighbor. And so when I've taken actions like vetoing the nastiest piece of anti-LGBTQ legislation that ever came through my state, I described it in those terms. I said my faith teaches me that all children are children of God, and I didn't want people picking on those kids.
Wow, that people are still applauding this stuff. So, okay, first off, him talking about his faith is just fine. He can have whatever relationship he wants with God. I think he's a little confused as it applies to his politics. The nastiest piece of LGBTQ legislation. First off, this is why I've said it a million times. This is why these letters have nothing to do with each other. What the trans thing is doing, what the T's and the Q's are doing, are quite literally attacking and mutilating the L's and the G's and the B's. If you have a young girl who is just a little more masculine, right? She's into playing sports a little bit more. She doesn't like wearing dresses. She doesn't care about princesses, and she likes Transformers. They will then tell you she is a boy now. And you can, of course, do the reverse of that, where if the boy doesn't like sports and he likes dancing or he likes music or whatever, they will tell you he's a girl. It is not empathetic to then chemically castrate them. It is not empathetic to give them drugs, confuse them on who they are or what their biological reality is or anything else. If at the age of 18 they wish to make some choices as it pertains to their life, well, I believe in individual rights and I believe in personal freedom, and you can do what you want at that point. But the idea that you, as the governor, banned people, as many people are now pointing out, Jordan Peterson, I think, was the first to say it, calling these people butchers, these butchers, from taking young, perfect creatures, an 8, 10, 13-year-old kid, and doing something to them, to their bodies and their minds that they simply have no way of understanding, that we're still debating this, and that he still gets up there thinking he's the good guy for doing it, and that those people in the audience, the SEALs who get the fish thrown at them and then applaud for it, that they still applaud it. It is rather extraordinary. But now, as I said, we're dedicating this whole segment to suicidal empathy. So what happens with suicidal empathy? He's telling you that he's so empathetic that he's for genitally mutilating kids. Well, what else happens when you become suicidally empathetic? Well, you start not properly policing your neighborhoods. You start seeing bad people do things and thinking, oh, if they just had another break, if I just knew what happened to them when they were a kid, then things would be better. This is a rather extraordinary story, also out of Kentucky. This is a judge by the name of Tracy Davis. There is a guy who was a rapist and kidnapper. He had a 65-year sentence. Watch as she cuts his sentence in half, and you will not believe some of the stuff we're going to show you after as it pertains to all of this.
But Judge Davis thought the jury's recommendation was too long. She feels he hasn't mentally matured yet and never had a real shot at getting any help early in life.
But if you were to come in here and instead of being hurt and angry, which is what this court hears, right, as a 20-year-old African-American male that has been, experienced this society, etc., and you would show that, yes, okay, this is the situation, this is who I am. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to be in jail for forever.
Thompson repeatedly stated he did not care, not about his sentence, the victim, or her family. But Judge Davis emphasized she's the one that holds the pen, and regardless of what the media may think, she applies the law. To her, 65 years was an extremely long time. As she puts it, it's his whole life, one she doesn't believe should be spent entirely behind bars.
This court does not believe that Mr. Thompson, if given the resources that he can get while incarcerated, is beyond being rehabilitated.
I mean, if you're blown away by what you just heard, just wait, we got more for you. But I mean, my God, is that the most perfect example of suicidal empathy? Here you have a rapist kidnapper who's showing no remorse over what he did. The jury says 65 years, and then the judge comes in and says, well, you're black. What was it? In essence, you're African American. You grew up in this society. Like, are you a judge who is applying the law equally and with blindfold on, or are you a therapist? She's acting like a therapist. So she basically says, okay, they wanted you to have 65 years. I'm going to cut it in half. Here is Thompson. Is it bleeped? It is bleeped. So here's Thompson. After he hears that, she's going to cut this thing in half, this sentence in half. You'd think he might say, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll serve my time and I'm going to get out there a better person. Instead, he tells her that he wants her to eat his dick, bitch, and spit on her.
Mr. Thompson, I'm going to need you to be respectful.
I ain't doing nothing.
Well, it's fine. Okay?
What?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Spit on y'all,
at the end of the day, I'm the one with the pen.
Sentencing.
Okay, so he's going to spit on her. She still wanted him to have less than the 65 years that the jury wanted. It is worth noting that Thompson told the victim that he'd see her in 20 years and told the family of the victim that he'd fuck y'all kids and fuck y'all dead loved ones. The judge, who is full of suicidal empathy, seems to be more interested in rehabilitating someone who does not want to be rehabilitated, who has kidnapped and raped a young girl. And that really, I'm really showing you, whittling down the same problem that we just showed you with the governor of Kentucky. He's so empathetic, he will have children's genitals chopped off. And now you have a judge in Kentucky. I mean, these two stories are coming out of Kentucky, which is just bizarre, who, despite the guy telling the judge to eat her dick and all the stuff, still going to do it. So what else happens when you have suicidal empathy? Well, then what you start doing is you start importing people who are bad and you think you're nice for doing it. You then create the conditions so that good people, often black people, they always pretend that they care about black people, right? That's what the left does. They can't go about doing business. So in Chicago, can we get the numbers on how many people were killed in Chicago this weekend? It was probably a little light because of the Super Bowl. I would imagine people were indoors. But in Chicago this weekend, a new soul food restaurant called Soul Vibe Signature opened. Black owner just wanted to serve some good old soul food. Everyone likes a little soul food. Well, look what happened.
The doors deadbolted, the alarm system on with multiple cameras inside, and none of that deterred this burglar, seen here on surveillance video, from breaking into newly opened Soul Vibes Signature.
You violated a business that just been open literally
2 days.
The owner and chef, Larisha Baker, heartbroken at the damage done. Chicago police say the suspect pried open the front door at the corner of Hubbard and Wells in River North around 4:30 Tuesday morning. Using the restaurant's own knives to cut cables and wires, you see the suspect smash open the cash register by slamming out on the ground. Money flew everywhere.
He took a few $100s, he took some liquor, but he broke our systems. He broke our internet, he broke our wires, he broke everything that we needed to be successful for you.
You want empathy, Democrats? How about empathy for her? She's a small business owner, chef. I have no doubt that was her life's dream. The restaurant looked beautiful from the outside. But because you guys, instead of having proper amounts of empathy for decent people, because you have suicidal empathy for the bad guys, for the people who come to our country illegally, the people who break into stores, the people who rape young girls, the people who want to genitally mutilate children, because your empathy is aimed at those people with seemingly no limits, you end up destroying the lives of the good people, right? So no Democrat in Congress is going to say a word about that lovely woman who just was trying to accomplish the American dream. And that's what suicidal empathy is. You will fall on the sword that will not only destroy your life, but ultimately you do it long enough, and when it scales, it will literally destroy the entire country. Let's continue in Chicago. And by the way, I was correct. The numbers were pretty good in Chicago this week, and only one person was shot and killed. 12 people were shot, but that's Chicago. Chicago, Chicago, it's a hell of a town. Here is what's going on the famous Blue Line in Chicago. Looks like a great, if you're out and you're just got to get across town, this looks good.
Hey, do this. Knock on that door. Knock on that door.
So suicidal empathy. Don't properly police. Don't arrest people for doing drugs. Be nice to everybody. And then what does it do? Well, the services get degraded. By the way, a version of this is coming to New York, as New York City will give free buses. And they don't already, subways were not intended to be free, but people just jump the turnstile and they've decided they won't arrest you or anything. Then where are all of the homeless people going to go? If you're a homeless person or a drug addict or a generalized lunatic or a crazy person, murderer, rapist, instead of staying upstairs where it might be chilly or something, you might just want to take, 6 seats on a bench, build a little home, do your meth, and disturb the family that's trying to go see, what's on Broadway these days, Lion King 6 or something. But so suicidal empathy. They say they're doing something good and they destroy everything. And now let's continue with that theory. Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley is the young guy who's got one of these freaking things, got a phone, decided to figure out what's going on in Minneapolis and Minnesota, uncovered billions of dollars in fraud, which ultimately has led to Tim Walz not even running for re-election. And there's just a massive, massive scandal happening there. Here he went to Los Angeles, where I used to live, and checked out some of the local tourist spots.
Now, if he's blue, he's not responsive, his color's gone, he'd be like a blue, gray, purple color, then you know he's overdosing.
Okay.
So the most important thing is to hit him with Narcan. Doesn't matter how much Narcan you give him. If you got 3 in here, give him all 3 and rescue breaths.
Let me try to take a slightly other tack on this. I don't mean even to be sarcastic or silly or funny about any of this. That guy is dead or dying. The young guy there is obviously a volunteer who has an awful lot of empathy, and he doesn't want to see these people just die on the streets. So he then has to teach people how to use Narcan, which is basically, I think it's something that they basically have to jam into their chest. Isn't Narcan what they did in Pulp Fiction to the guy? Yeah, they jam it into their chest. It breaks, it wakes up the entire system basically. But you can only do it a couple times, and most likely that guy will end up dead. And you can see all the other people in the background. Now, how did this happen? Again, it's suicidal empathy. It's Gavin Newsom. I mean, he doesn't even have any human empathy, but it's the notion of we will not stop anyone from doing anything ever. And we will allow for all of this. And then remember, who was it a couple months ago? Was it Karen Bass when there were some riots in LA? And she was asked about it. She's the mayor of Los Angeles. And she was like, well, it's just in a very controlled area, 4 blocks downtown, and a lot of people don't live there. It's like, okay, so just concede downtown Los Angeles to the crazy people. So everything that these people do, we've now illustrated it on several fronts, whether it's gender, whether it's crime, whether it's drugs, public transportation, everything they do, suicidal empathy is baked in. Because most people, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Most of these people have good intentions, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the road is still taking you to hell. Now, interestingly, even in a place as deeply corrupt and backwards as California, occasionally something decent happens. This is Fox's Bill Malutian reporting how a federal judge, so this isn't fully Cali, but it happened in Cali, a federal judge has blocked California from enforcing a law that was going to basically stop ICE officers from wearing masks.
And Brett, within just the last hour or so, we've learned that a federal judge based in Los Angeles has just blocked the state of California from enforcing its new law, which sought to ban ICE agents from wearing masks in the state. The judge, who is a Clinton appointee, argued that that new law violates the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, and it singles out federal agents, which ultimately discriminates against them. We'll send it back to you.
Well, I have to say, that's nice to see the supremacy clause. We've been talking about that a lot over here. And yes, the federal government does have jurisdiction when it comes to immigration and deportations. And the same Democrats who wanted everybody to be masked because somebody had a cough a couple of years ago now want officers whose families are getting doxxed and who are being threatened to not be masked. So good on that federal judge. It's nice to see that something decent can happen in California every now and again. But let's shift. As long as we're doing national politics, we started in Kentucky. We went all the way to California. Now let's come a little closer this way. We'll go back to Texas, where Lady Eyelashes, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, is running for Senate. And I thought this was quite an interesting interview that she did, because here she admits that lying is absolutely necessary and something she will continue to do when it's politically expedient.
But when I see the moment on the House where you seem to accuse Republican Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it seemed like if it was not the same person, I wonder, is there times in which the rhetoric goes too far? Are there times in which you should say, maybe I messed that one up?
No, not in this environment. I don't. I think that, we are really in uncharted territory.
So I hear your argument that you're reflecting the urgency necessary, and so that's why you won't give an inch.
Correct.
It's interesting because that's the most perfect example of the ends justify the means, right? You will do whatever you have to do, no matter how profoundly dishonest or corrupt or evil it is, to get what you want, which really, I would say at this point, is baked into the Democrat system. Everything that the Democrats are doing, none of it has anything to do with logic or reason or truth. It has to do with attaining power. So what the guy was referencing there was, you may remember it a couple months ago when she went on at the Congress floor, and she said that Lee Zeldin took money from Jeffrey Epstein. Except it turned out it was another Jeffrey Epstein. It wasn't Jeffrey Epstein, the human trafficking, whatever the high hell that guy is, right? It was a different guy. And he just says, well, should you have done that? And she says, yes. We live in a crazy time, so yes, I can lie about who's taken money from the human trafficking pedophile. Like, what? What, lady? There's just no there. There is no bottom to this endless pit with you people. However, I don't want to be too critical of her because she is an intellectual, at least according to her.
I've always been someone who has been intellectual. I was top 10% of my class at Texas Southern my first year in law school. I was always very much kind of digging in and wanted to understand. I was always the person that would bring the receipts and wouldn't back down. So,
you were always clapping back too?
I was always, there was always a pushback. If I feel like I am right on something, I've always been very clear about.
Guys, she was in the top 10% freshman year at Texas Southern University. We did a little checking. Texas Southern University has a 96% acceptance rate. If you are breathing, they will let you in. So in her first year of a university that everyone who applies gets into, she was in the top 10% of her class. My God, open a Mensa chapter, lady. You are incredible. Here's more on Crockett and voter IDs.
There was a benefit to shining a light on what it was that they were trying to do in the dark in Texas. So unfortunately, we've seen our numbers fall now that they have these voter restrictions in place. But I do think it's important for us to have the conversation.
Did you catch what she just said right there? I didn't set it up with too much. Their numbers fell in the election, meaning Democrat numbers fell in the election when there were voter restrictions in place. You're never going to guess what voter restriction she's talking about. Having to show an ID. Hello, I'm Bob. I'm Bob Gunderson, and I'd like to vote in this election. Sir, can you prove who you are? Yes, here's my ID. It says Bob Gunderson. Where that name's coming from? Wait, Bob Gunderson. Wasn't Bob Gunderson the guy in Groundhog Day that he kept bumping into on the street that he went to high school with? What was that guy's name? Ted Gunderson? What was the guy's name in Groundhog Day? The high school friend that he keeps bumping into right before he steps in the water. Something Gunderson. All right, we're going to get back to that in just a second. They're working on it. Okay, here is what the point is. She's upset that Democrat numbers go down.
Ned Ryerson.
Ned Ryerson, Bob Gunderson. What are you going to do? But the point is, when they put what she calls voter restrictions, also known as IDs, Democrat numbers go down. Curious. Let's go all the way back, time machine it, people, 2008. Here's Barack Obama admitting that voter fraud does happen. And it's on both sides.
I would just like to know what you can say to reassure us that this election will not be rigged or stolen.
So I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too. You know, whenever people are in power, they have this tendency to try to, tilt things in their direction.
Well, that's quite interesting, Barack Obama. All the way back in 2008, you're saying that Republicans do it and Democrats do it. There's some monkeying around, that they're fiddling around with elections. Well, that's quite interesting. So maybe you'd want people to have identification so that there could be less monkeying, unless you're for the monkeying because it's the only way your party can win elections at this point. I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. Let me show you something interesting as it pertains to these elections because it's basic stuff, which is why yesterday, we have the printer here. I tried to auction off a printer here to a black, I don't need it, to a black and or rural person because the Democrats keep saying black people and people in rural areas can't get IDs. We tried to offer it up. I put it up on the Twitter machine. We put it on the show. We did not get one person saying, Dave, I need that printer, okay? So we're trying. We are trying. But the point is, it's so dumb. It is so dim-witted and drivelous to say you cannot get an ID because we all get it and we are all able to do things like this, as Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma points out.
Taking away the rights of people who might not have access to
Okay, you can't get a bank account, you can't get a job, you can't lie, you can't get a loan, you can't buy tobacco, you can't buy alcohol, you can't even sign up for government benefits unless you have an ID. But somehow, when it comes to voting, it is going to limit the ability for people to vote, or they may not have an ID. And you're going, really? But these are the same people that wanted to move alcohol and tobacco from 18 to 21, and you had to show a proof of ID. I don't get it. You can't argue with crazy, but that's exactly what they sound like.
Well, you do get it, actually, which is that they are trying to import new voters and make it and overwhelm the system so that no one will know who voted. They want to monkey around with the election, and that's the only reason. Otherwise, none of this makes sense at any level. If it made sense, if they truly believed it, let's say Schumer really believed that it was Jim Crow 2.0 and that there were quite literally millions of people who somehow we're completely outside of the system, but as Mullen points out, they get benefits and everything else. But let's say any of that was true. What would be the sane thing to do right now? Wouldn't the sane thing to do would be a national drive to get people IDs? Wouldn't there be one great Democrat out there, some Democrat with money, a Soros type, who would be like, you know what, I will put $100 million into getting all of the people who don't have IDs. But note, they never float that idea. That's never put out there. You may remember an interview I did about, it's about 5 years ago now, Nikki Haley, who, when she was governor of South Carolina, this became an issue. The Democrats were all screaming about it. So she decided, Republican governor, to set up a fund. And I forget, bear with me, I forget the exact numbers, but she put several $1 million into a fund so that if you lived in South Carolina and you didn't have an ID, you could get one. And I think she told me that something like 16 people actually used it. So it is completely absurd, completely absurd. So the next time you're in one of these conversations with one of your Democrat buddies or something, and they say, well, these people can't get it. So then say to them, well, then why doesn't some rich person, or why don't you, just the person you're talking to, how about you donate a little bit of money to a fund to help a young black rural guy who can't get to a printer? Help him. Help him. Stop saying it. Show me something. Here's Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt pointing out that, yes, this is all about illegals voting, which is obviously true.
Democrats want to have people who are here illegally vote for them. That's the God's honest truth. And I think if 2024 represented anything, Harris, it was a return of common sense. There couldn't be more of a common sense proposal than saying you have to provide voter ID to vote, just like when you check into a hotel or you buy an airline ticket, just to prove who you are. But I think it's really interesting and telling that two issues are converging at the same time. This issue of illegal immigration and this issue of voter ID. The Democrats aren't really quiet about it anymore. They're sort of saying the quiet part out loud, which is they want to bring in 15 to 20 million people in here illegally, and they want them to vote for them because they know their ideas are terrible and they can't win elections otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, their ideas are pretty terrible. I think we've quite densely laid out the problem with suicidal empathy, what they are doing to their cities. Then the Republicans try to come in, Trump tries to come in, clean up some of that stuff, and they tell you he's an authoritarian and a maniac to just trying to clean up the problem that they've created. They never go out and build anything, right? If they wanted to build something, they could build a nonprofit that would then help people get IDs. But they don't want to do that because they actually don't want people to have IDs because they want the fraud in the system. So what do? So as I always say, you want two roughly healthy parties that disagree on tax rates a little bit, disagree maybe on some foreign policy stuff and everything else. Now we have, a Republican Party that's basically pretty decent, not perfect, a little messy is what it is. And then you have a completely psychotic Democrat Party that is trying to destroy everything. So what can we do in the face of that? Well, we can build things, and we better build them fast because we will only have this political power for a little while. One of the best things that Donald Trump did when he widened the tent was bring in Bobby Kennedy, a guy whose last name was synonymous with the Democrat Party, who years ago I told him would not be a Democrat by the end of his campaign, who is now running HHS. And one of the things that MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, has done is they have launched realfood.gov, and here's the Super Bowl ad. You probably saw it with Mike Tyson promoting Whole Foods. It took Mike Tyson, a man who has been punched in the head more than anyone you know, to tell you to stop eating crap.
My sister's name was Denise. She died of obesity at 25. She had a heart attack. I was so fat and nasty. I would eat anything. I was like 345 pounds, a quart of ice cream every hour. I had so much self-hate when I was like that. I just wanted to kill myself. We're the most powerful country in the world, and we have the most obese, fudgy people. Something has to be done about processed food in this country.
Yeah, it's not controversial, guys. Eat whole foods, eat real meat, eat steak, eat real chicken, eat eggs, eat fresh vegetables, have an apple. Somebody said if you eat one a day, something about a doctor ain't gonna show up. Like, try some of that. Now, ironically, that ad, which was quite good, and there's just something kind of great about Tyson post his entire boxing career and everything, but ironically, how many other ads, maybe we can Google this, how many ads were there for GLP-1 medications? I mean, it was crazy, the amount of ads for Ozempic and Zempopic and Stop Fat-Assic and all the shit. It was just endless. But how about, and I'm not saying there's no place for those things, right? For people who have tried everything else. But imagine if you just took a little more responsibility for yourself, stopped eating the processed foods, took a walk in the morning, got a little bit more sun, like did some of those things, you might start feeling better. Like that's what I've done over the last couple of years. I'm not bragging or anything else. Like I just took a little more responsibility, started eating a little bit differently, working out a little bit differently, and you can get control of your life and you don't need to drug yourself on stuff that likely in years from now, for all the ads for Ozempic and everything else that they showed on the Super Bowl this year, 5 years from now, they'll be telling you, oh, now you have to take something else because Ozempic did destroy your bone density and blah, blah, blah. There were 4 ads for other weight loss drugs during the Super Bowl. Think about that. Here is Bobby Kennedy talking about how that Mike Tyson ad came together.
The whole ad was shot and the whole thing was conceived over about a 3-day period. And they gave him a script. The script was not working, and he just started talking. And it's an extraordinary, powerful ad. I think it's the most important ad in Super Bowl history because it's a crisis, Peter, that's existential for us now. 77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. The obesity is off the chart. 38% of American teens are diabetic or pre-diabetic.
How cool is it that Bobby left the Democrat Party? It was not easy for him to do. First, then was running as an independent, ultimately realized, boy, I could be a part of this MAGA thing. He brought the MAGA and Maha thing together. Actually, one of my most enjoyable moments of the last couple of years was going to the, what did they call it? Was it the Restore the Republic rally? The Restore the Republic rally, Rescue the Republic rally in DC. And it was me and it was Bobby Kennedy and Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein and a few others. And it was the first moment that the Maha and MAGA thing came together, and to see all those flags, all of these people, all of the Maha people, they were all these they were like 60s hippie Democrats who then were standing with the MAGA people. It was so awesome to see. And it was absolutely something that led to Trump winning the election and everything else. And what Bobby has talked about here is this is his life's mission. You know, they hate him now. They hate this guy. It's absolutely insane. This guy who's looking at why are we injecting our kids with all of this stuff? Why are we giving them all of these foods that are terrible? Why do we have quite literally poisons in our cereals that they don't allow for children's cereals in Europe? And they hate him for that. And here he is talking about, I think we've played this once before, how this really is a spiritual battle.
And it's a spiritual warfare because this is a spiritual malaise. So this affects mental health, despite what the New York Times says. There's 75 years of peer-reviewed science that show that improving your health is going to improve even the symptoms of schizophrenia, of ADHD, of bipolar disorder. When you give people in prisons real food, the violence goes down by 40%. The use of restraints goes down by 75%. The food is affecting everything that we do. This is warfare.
Sorry, obviously we haven't showed you that one before. That was from this Sunday, but he's referenced that before, this idea that it's spiritual warfare. And again, we all know these things. Like, what happens when you give a kid a bunch of sugar, right? Like, we got ice cream sandwiches for the kids during the Super Bowl. And for 2 hours, like it's absolutely insane. So you wouldn't want to do that all the time. Maybe you wouldn't want to give them breakfast cereals that are loaded with sugar and also, I don't know, red dye and poisons and everything else. You might want to have as much. It's not to say you never give anyone ice cream. It's not to say you never have freaking chicken fingers, which I'm pretty sure we're having for lunch today. It's not to say you never do any of those things. But think about things a little bit differently. And why have we had a system in place that has made it so easy for us to make all of the wrong choices? I don't know exactly what the answer to that is. This one we have showed you before. This is Bobby talking about how this has been his life's mission and why Trump was the vehicle to get what he cares about over the finish line.
For 20 years, I was, screaming about this. With nobody paying attention, no pediatricians, which is really strange. What happened to the pediatricians? They know, some of them have been working for 20 years and they know that kids are not, they're seeing this increase, this influx in all these diseases. And I was censored and shut down. And but I prayed every single day that God would put me in a place where I could fix this. And so for me, when President Trump asked me to join his campaign in August of 2024, it felt providential. It felt like the answer to prayers.
Yeah, and then flash forward, so that's from, a year or two ago, and then it's like, okay, well now during the Super Bowl, he gets to be part of that ad with Mike Tyson where hopefully some kids will just be like, you know what, Mom, Dad, this week at school, you know, you don't have to give me the whatever, the Takis and the whatever, but I'll take an apple instead. And then maybe we start straightening some of this stuff out. But before we finish, let's shift a little bit to something that is quite important outside of all the woke crap and how you're eating, which is the economy. And there are signs that the economy is turning around. You might remember at the end of 2025 in December, I went to DC. We interviewed, I don't know, about a dozen Republican senators and congressmen, and everybody said the exact same thing, which is wait till the big, beautiful bill kicks in 26, and you're going to see a lot of good things happening with the economy. Well, it seems like it's starting to happen. Here's video of the White House confirming that GDP growth is booming right now.
Well, I think that there are two forces that are sort of pushing down and then one force that's pushing up. The force that's pushing up is that GDP growth is through the roof. Even with a revised down GDP now, we're looking at 4% growth into the end of the year, 3% for the year as a whole, despite the fact that we had a really negative first quarter with Joe Biden. And so that's the positive effect. The negative effects are when there's a productivity boom, then maybe you can make the same amount of stuff with fewer workers, and so that might reduce labor demand. And then the other thing is that there's a pretty big decline in the labor force because of illegals leaving the country. And so the break-even job number is quite a bit lower than it was under Joe Biden when there were people, basically coming across the border willy-nilly.
Okay, so the guy you're listening to right there, that's Kevin Hassett, who, as of today, has a new job, I believe. He was the director. Wait, Phoenix, roll it back for me. I want to get his title correct. He was the director of the National Economic Council. He now, I guess technically that's still his job, he now has been nominated by Trump as the chair of the Federal Reserve. Here is Trump talking to Larry Kudlow on what he thinks might happen with a new chairman over at the Fed.
Tell you, if our new head of the Fed, who I think is going to be great, and he's a really high quality person, but if he does the job that he's capable, we can grow at 15%. I think more than.
Okay, so Trump has been at odds with the Fed, and I think it was Kevin O'Leary a couple months ago, we showed you a video where he was like, it's a good move for the president always to be fighting with the Fed, right? Because no one wants to be, I'm here to defend the Fed. But now Trump will hopefully have a guy at the Fed who he believes in, and with the big, beautiful bill passing, hopefully we start seeing the economy chug along a little bit more. And the key thing here, everything we do on this show from now until November is about whether the Republicans will keep the House and keep the Senate. Because if they do not, well, first off, they better pass some stuff while they can right now, which is all about that nuclear option that we've been talking about. Can they just pass some stuff with 51 votes, which we generally wouldn't want to happen, but we know we're fighting a force with the Democrat Party right now that will pack the courts and allow all the illegals to vote and all of this crazy stuff. But right now, Trump must continue the messaging, not only the messaging, but the reality on the ground that things are getting better in this country, which actually is true. And we got to keep making sure that people know that, because otherwise it's going to get very bad, and it will get very bad very fast. Here's Trump talking about how Republicans should win in a landslide. Take a look.
Can you beat history on these midterm elections? Yeah. Carry the House and the Senate for the GOP. Can you do it on the economy? Do you need more communication? Do you need more marketing? Do you need more help? I mean, the numbers are on your side. The question is, does the public know this?
Well, we have a fake news that doesn't get the word out. That's why I love doing an interview. We get the word out. Mm-hmm. But so you ask a question. In 50 years, a president that's won, even a popular president, somebody that's done well. I'm popular and I've done well. I mean, I think we have the greatest economy actually ever in history. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. That's said by everybody. We have the hottest country in the world. I guess I have to sell that, because we should win in a landslide, and we'll do everything we can to do it.
I like Larry Kudlow a lot, and next time I'm in New York, we're going to do I go on his show on Fox Business, usually when I'm in there for Gutfeld. I go on his show. We're going to do an interview where I go on his show, and then right after from his studio, I'm going to be on his show. But I thought his question there was quite good because he makes a point that I'm always bringing up on this show, which is that there's a difference between reality and narrative, meaning that the numbers actually are all trending in Trump's direction and in America's direction, right? Like the economy is getting good. We're getting some of the trade deals back and everything else. But then what he's saying is, but what about the narrative? Do you need marketing and blah, blah, blah? And then Trump points out the fake news and everything else. That really will be the challenge, right? That's why I try to clean things up as much as possible here, because I want people to know what reality is, because just selling numbers to people isn't enough. You have to be able to also control narrative. You have to be able to also control culture, et cetera, et cetera. I also think it's interesting, you know, Trump said we're the hottest country in the world. And you might go, oh, that's just Trump kind of over the top stuff. But what country is doing better than us right now? Really think about it. Like, what country is doing better than us? Is Canada doing better than us? Is Bolivia or Guatemala or any of the countries that Bad Bunny showed the flag of yesterday? Are any of the Asian countries doing better than us? How's Western Europe doing? Not so great. Would you rather be in America right now, or would you rather be in Britain? Would you rather be in America or France or Belgium or any of those countries? I don't know. You could maybe argue, okay, so Poland's doing pretty good and Hungary's doing all right. But like, we really still are the leader of the world. Trump has shredded these international agreements, gone to Davos and told these people to shove it. So we still are the biggest and the best. And we better know that, because the day that we aren't, it's going to be worse. I promise you that. I think the show is exactly what we promised right at the beginning, you know? It was just some ideas, little of this, little of that. One guy telling a judge he wants to piss on her or something. And now everyone can go about their day. Post-game show, 30 seconds, RubinReport.locals.com. See you tomorrow.